Hey, so I want to do a review today, and this has been long coming. I'm very excited for it because I finally read The Stand. I'm not going to give any spoilers in this review, okay? I'm going to make another video all about my interpretation of the ending of this book and what I think it means, but I won't talk about that. So this is just my very general review of it, which I do give this book 5 out of 5 stars, and that's why I'm trying to tell all the reasons here why I think this book is worth 5 stars. So, writing style, plot, character development, my goodness, and overall just enjoyment. So there's nothing that I didn't like about this book, and I'm very picky. I'm very particular about the way I like my writing style. And with the ending, again, no spoilers, but some people I think have graded this book less than ideal because they don't like the way the ending is. The reason I decided to read this book was because it's on the ban list for 2020, right? So not marching band, but banned as in not supposed to read this book. So there were a ton of things surrounding death, suicide, and murder, sickness, dying. Now, Stephen King gets really graphic, and his overall theme is not like, or his overall vibe is not like, the recent Pulp Fiction that I've been reading, where it's just all adventure. His theme is definitely, or his vibe is definitely how he always is, where he's a little bit deep and dark. And so there's a lot of that going on in the beginning when, I guess I should get to the plot of this story. So the way this book goes is the whole first third, I guess, book 1 is all the plague, the fall of man, and let's see, what does that say? Oh, I took notes. Characters, okay? So this is where he's developing the richness and dimension of everything. So this is also the point in the book where there's the most darkness, dread. It's kind of sad, downer a little bit, right? But I just wanted to endure through it, just because I heard it was such a wonderful book. And then also I didn't really have to force myself to keep going. Yeah, and then moving on, I want to talk about the book 2. Book 2 is about mostly pilgrimage and rebuilding and surviving. And so all of these characters come together and have, they're having all these prophecies, these dreams, and mysticism. There's a lot of mysticism that goes on in this book and religious themes. And this kind of building both sides of good and evil. So you have about 8 characters that the book follows from third person, and you follow them, what they're doing, obviously what they're thinking, things going on in their lives, and Stephen King just builds on each one like an onion, just kind of slowly pulling back all these characters. And so part 1 is doing a lot of that, the dying, as I mentioned. Part 2, they're all traveling to different places where their dreams are telling them to go, okay? And then part 3 book 3 is basically their stand against evil. So, why is this book called The Stand? Well, page 1144. It is the first time I kind of realized it. So we have this old woman named Rita. She is African American, I think one of the oldest women in the country, and she becomes kind of the leader of the good people because she has kind of this mystic spiritual ability, and she's hearing from God telling, and then he's kind of bringing all these people to be around her in the city of Boulder, which is also called the Free Zone. So that's the Free Zone's where all the good people are. So when she is saying, "You must go to Vegas to make your stand. You will go and you will not falter, because you will have the everlasting arm of the Lord God of hosts to lean on. Yes, with God's help you will stand." So that's why the book is called The Stand. So I am going to make a whole nother video on all of the characters who they are, why they're important, and what you can learn from them, or what I learned from them, and that's going to be a whole nother video. So I'm not even going to really get into the characters too much here, because there's so many other things I want to talk about in general. So I want to talk about why I like Stephen King's writing so much. And as I said, this book did not, I did not feel forced, right? This book is paced really well, and this book, I wasn't bored. Now, I know some people said that they were bored in this book, in book 2, when they're kind of, all the characters are kind of rebuilding society in Boulder, and they're having, kind of these town meetings and stuff like that. I didn't find that boring at all. I thought it was really interesting, especially because one of the characters, Glenn, he is a professor of sociology, and he is so interesting, right? So for me, it's interesting learning about why or how would we rebuild a society, and where do we even start? How do we get electricity back on? Who's going to do that? How do we establish law and order? How do we have jails? How do we punish people if they do things, that we consider lawless? And what do we consider lawless? What if somebody just steals something out of need, or so these ethical issues come up and so they have to decide, well, how are we going to prosecute somebody for something if we don't have a law that they broke? So it made me think about how our early founders of our country must have gone through all of this process, and it made me appreciate the government system that we have in place. That if it was lawless, that would be really scary, because people would just be doing all sorts of things, and there's no laws, there's no punishment, there's no crimes. So that part was interesting for me to learn about, and so that wasn't boring for me, long story short. So I want to talk about some parts I really liked real quick. So one thing I really like about Stephen King's writing is his use of metaphors, and that's what makes his books engaging for me. It's not just fact of one thing happening after another. It's not, it's just, let me just tell you. So an example of how I think his metaphors really make things interesting. Her conversation seemed like a careless spray of diamonds on the green felt of a billiard table. So you get this vision in your mind of a billiard table and diamonds being sprayed on it, and then it's like, well, what does that have to do with her conversation? Does that mean that her words are very valuable, but what does a billiard table mean? Just so it's like, well, I just love the way he makes me think like that. And then another example of how he reads, or how his metaphors, so Larry is taking a woman to bed, and instead of just saying this happened, that happened, or Larry sleeps around a lot, or Larry sleeps with a lot of women and has meaningless sex all the time, his way of describing it is the women he took to bed with him, even if they reduced intercourse to something as casual as getting a snack from the refrigerator, accepted him with a stiffening of the body, a turning away of countenance. They took him the way they might take a ram with golden eyes or a black dog, and when it was done, they were cold, so cold, it seemed impossible they could ever be warm again. But that is just so deep. I'm getting shivers just now. So it's like, why wouldn't they ever be warm again? Does he think he's that terrible of a man that the women that he sleeps with could never be warm again? That's so profound. I still have goosebumps. And so that's an example of the writing. Now, he really also, Stephen King knows how to write out fight scenes. I don't want to read this whole thing, but basically we have a character who's blind and mute, and he goes through the action scenes, not just saying this happened, not to rip on young adult fiction, but I just get so bored in the action scenes because, oh, such and such swiped his sword, such and such pushed him back, and then this happened, that. I just get so bored. I can't even, it's so funny because I can't even pay attention to a lot of action scenes, and I've always wondered why is that if it's an action scene, I should be able to pay attention and visualize what's happening. Well, I still don't know the complete answer, but I think this might be part of it, because like when you finally read someone who's a good writer, and then you're like, oh, that's what I've been missing this whole time. For example, action scene is littered with similes and metaphor throughout the whole thing. So my brain is just visualizing it almost like in a fourth dimension. That's the only way I can describe it. So he says, so basically someone got punched, he got punched in his face, right? Instead of saying he just got punched in his face, he says he could taste flecks of his teeth on his tongue. That's poetic as well as just being good imagery. He could taste flecks of his teeth on his tongue. And then he said, oncoming circles of light pinned him there like an actor on a stage. Okay, well, those are the examples of the writing that I wanted to talk about. One good point I wanted to make too about this book is that everything that you go through in the beginning with this book, everything you're going through in the beginning is worth it in the end. Well, I don't have a problem with the ending of this book because, first of all, I felt like the ending of this book was really fulfilling, and it ended on such a positive note that all of everything that I went through in the beginning was worth it, because the end, it left me with just a feeling of hope and positivity and just the same kind of magical feeling that I get when I read Lord of the Rings. I'm not going to compare this book to Lord of the Rings because I don't think that's fair, but and I know Stephen King was kind of going for that a little bit, but the way that I would, in a sense, say that it's similar to the Lord of the Rings is just in the very ending of a journey that happened. The journey was just like more of an adventure, more of a positive, and very exciting time, and it was just really, really joyful the way it ended. And then there was something else that happened prior to that, which those of you who've already read the book know what I'm talking about. Something really big happens, okay? And I think that's a more controversial topic, which my other video I'm going to make was going to be about that. But I didn't have a problem with that either because I just think that and I don't think it was necessarily even unfinished at all. I don't think that was it was unfinished. I just think it was what you think it is. You know, it's not left unfinished, but it's left for you to, you know, say, well, what does this mean for me? And the best writing by far in the entire book, in my opinion, was the thoughts of the man walking down the highway. And he goes into just delving deep into describing this man's thoughts and feelings in a way that's so impressive. I read it like 3 times. That's why it took me a while to get through this book. So King wanted to keep this person a mysterious character, it seems, kind of just existing in dreams and nightmares. And this was good, but it's also going to say, I'm also going to say it's the reason that if I had to say something I didn't like about this book, it would have been that. Because I think it would have been good to have more parts in the beginning of Randall Flagg, and, you know, more snippets like that, just little inserts of, you know, Randall Flagg, you know, doing something, even if it's just something mundane, getting a feeling more for his character. But there was only that one part, and then obviously towards the end that he built on his character a little bit, But I was annoyed that he didn't build on his character more throughout the story, and I feel like he still could have done that while keeping him still mysterious. So, like I said, I'm sure King had his reasons for that, but Randall Flagg was such a good character that I wanted more of him, and so in a way I was kind of unsatisfied with the lack of Randall Flagg that I got in the first part of this book. So now we did get a bunch of him in the end, so I won't go into spoilers. So this book, 5 stars, and I recommend this book for anyone who is curious about what drives humans to form and forge civilizations. If you want to learn about how humans can grow and adapt to a collapsing society, if you are a prepper, you're interested in anything post-apocalypse, you want to know about how would you prepare, or what would happen, or what were things you need to prepare for something really bad happening, and you know, how people cope and how people build resilience in the face of danger, how to come to terms with impending danger and death. And, you know, a lot of the characters, what I enjoyed was a lot of the characters when they would come to their death or possible death. I loved understanding how people would be in that situation. Are they accepting it? Are they afraid, you know? Or maybe they're afraid, but they're also accepting it. You know, kind of, oh, I got shivers again. You know, and what would I be like in that situation? Would I be courageous like them, or would I just like hover and shiver in a corner and like shut down? So, you know, knowing myself, I know that I do dissociate in traumatic situations, and my body goes numb and I can't think, which is a shame. But unfortunately, we don't have any choice in how we respond to as humans when we're feeling like we're in danger or in trauma. You know, if you fight, good for you. We just can't choose. Some people fight, and oh girl, come here. And some people freeze. Some people freeze and just can't choose it. But, you know, I like to think some way that, you know, there is some way you could change it or something. But it's nice to picture what the other people did. Especially, there's some super inspirational characters in here that when they were in the face of death, they were like, man, fearless, doing things that I feel like I could never do to myself, for, you know, to die for a purpose, to die for a cause, and be able to just go and do that. Like, y'all know what I'm talking about if you've read this book. So I can't talk anymore about this book without getting into spoilers. So I'm going to make my other video, including spoilers. So check that one out. And I seriously recommend this book to anyone. If you love adventure, if you love all the things I said, with the understanding that the first third of this book is a lot about dying, death. There's themes of suicide, murder, maybe cannibalism even a little, yep, and all kinds of upsetting, disturbing things, gruesome things. But get through it, endure it, because I feel like it's tough, but it helps you grow as a character and a person, because it's almost like distress tolerance. I teach classes on distress tolerance. I'm a therapist, a group therapist, and so one thing that I teach is you know, sometimes letting yourself be a little bit triggered. You know, only you know how much of that you can take, and also to be in a safe place and have supportive people around you. But, you know, sometimes letting yourself be a little bit triggered so that you can learn to build up tolerance to that distress a little bit. So if you have issues with that, you know, or if you've been through a serious trauma, you know, talk with a therapist before you try to just do it. You know, but if you're like me and you're like, oh, this might be a little bit hard, but I'm pretty sure I can handle it, you know, then give it a try. Just like, I will say, there was one part of the book that I had to skim over because it was triggering. It was triggering for me because it involved a child, and I do not like that Stephen King put this part in the book, actually. That was the other thing I would criticize. I wish I could unread that part because it was just a mundane, not a mundane, but it was like a scene about a child being left alone, didn't have any parents, and then wandering around and basically getting himself killed. So that I did not like, and I wish I hadn't read that. But if you come to that part, just skim by it, because there's no. I mean, I don't think there's any really reason to have that in there or to read that. Like, what is it going to gain by me reading about some child, you know, wandering around and then getting killed? So that was completely unnecessary. Now I'm ranting, but that was just like the only thing really that I couldn't handle. But again, skip past it. Or if you're like, oh, I don't think I can handle this, okay, well, like, just skip past it. Go into the next chapter. The chapters are short, okay, and you'll be fine. Yeah. I got another book. Can I see it?
Yeah, what's going on? Come on. You don't think that's enough books? No. Let's settle down here with the books.
I can't settle down with books. He's saying that because I have about 500 books over here against the wall, stacked. Let's see what book I got in the mail. Oh my goodness, I already have this one. I bought this before I got my other copy, so, but it's okay because it's still a good one to have. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Now, why is this one so small and the one that I have is so big? So this is the one that I found. Look how thick it is. I think it's got other stories in it too. But did not have this paperback one. So now I have two. Okay. You can't have too many books ever.